Hey there fellow Planeswalkers, it's Steve for Collector Mania. We're continuing on our Dominaria Commander series. So today we're going to focus on Hallar the Firefletcher. So it's a pretty interesting Elf Warrior 3/3 legendary creature for a colorless, a red, and a green. It's got Trample. Whenever you cast a spell, if that spell was kicked, put a +1/+1 counter on Hallar the Firefletcher. Then Hallar deals damage equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on it to each opponent. So really powerful ability. I mean, I really like cards that deal damage to each opponent equally, you know, just off simple triggers like that. So most of the deck is going to revolve around Kicker, and I believe multi-Kicker works with this guy as well. As a strong sub-theme, we actually have a +1/+1 counter thing going on as well. So, you know, some good includes that way, you know, in the deck. So anyway, with that, let's break into our deck here. We're going to start with our creatures. We've got a Goblin Bushwhacker. So this guy's pretty interesting. He's single red, 1/1 that Kicker for 1 red. He gives all your creatures +1/+0 and haste until end of turn, so that could be pretty important, especially for on our go wide strategy. Then we've got a G2 Chronicler, so this guy is actually new from Domanaria. So essentially, if you pay the Kicker cost, so 3 colors and a red, it comes in and gets you an instant or sorcery from your graveyard back to your hand. Which actually, honestly, a lot of our Kicker spells are instants of sorcery, so this is pretty important. Then I've got a Kavu Titan, so just a simple 1/2/2 that if you kick it, it gets 3 +1/+1 counters on it and has Trample. Then I've got a Scavenging Ooze, of course a little bit of a graveyard destruction plus a little bit of life gain, and it fits into our theme here. Champion of Lampholt, I don't know why I wouldn't have included this card, it's absolutely insane. And then we've got a Sitalnu Woodreaders, so this is a 3-cost human druid, 1/4, that if you kick it for 3 more, you get to draw 2 cards, a little bit of card draw. Eternal Witness, of course, recursion. Goblin Rune Blaster, so this guy, if you kick him for a single red, he actually destroys a target non-basic land, so pretty good, actually. I've got a Mana Gorger Hydra, of course, one of my favorite cards that deals with +1/+1 counters. A Lifeblood Hydra, this is a card draw engine. I mean, you just stack the +1/+1 counters on this thing and then let it die and just draw a heck ton of life and gain, or draw a heck ton of cards and gain a bunch of life. And I've got another new card, Khaldun Overseer, so 2 colors and a red, and Kicker 3 colors and a red, and essentially it turns into a threaten effect, which is really good. I've got a Renegade Krasis. I love this card. I've been playing it in some Gov builds and some. I have a Bant Janara +1/+1 counter deck as well, and it works amazingly. It's a really good card. I've got Rishkar Pima Renegade. Great way to do a little bit of mana ramp and just puts +1/+1 counters where you want them to be. I've got a Tireless Tracker. This is probably one of the best card draw engines that's been printed in a long time. I mean, it's insane. It gets stronger, it gives you clues. If you have a way to double the clues, it doubles the clues, and, you know, like doubling season, stuff like that. This card is absolutely insane. I would highly recommend you start picking up copies of this. I think it's going to go nowhere but up. I know some people are starting to play it in Modern a lot, and who knows where this card will end up. It's absolutely amazing. Then we've got a Tuskguard Captain, a little bit of that Outlast, plus each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter now has Trample, so that's pretty cool. Then we've got a Verduran Emissary, so a little bit of artifact destruction. Armorcraft Judge, a way to draw cards again. Bloodsport Thoranax, a really cool way to actually put +1/+1 counters on creatures as they enter the battlefield. They've got a Cytoplast Rootkin, so he's got Graft 4. This is actually a really interesting creature. When he enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Then you can pay 2 to move a +1/+1 counter from target creature you control onto him. So, interesting. I like the second effect. I mean, Graft has always been interesting, and I've always tried to play around with it. I've got Forgotten Ancient. This is probably one of the best +1/+1 counter cards that exists. I mean, it's played in all those decks for a reason. Mold Shambler, a little bit of artifact and enchantment destruction. Territorial Allosaurus. This is a new Domanaria card. It's actually really cool, so if you kick it, it comes in and fights another creature. So I do like, also just as a side note, that they are continuing dinosaurs, you know, on into the next block to add a little bit 2x land, you know, after we leave the plane. Now we got Proforos, God of the Forge, so I decided to go Since we're kind of go wide strategy and playing a lot of creatures, I just decided to deal even more damage to our opponents with something like this. I've got a Verax Bladewing, another new card from Domanaria. This is an amazing creature in my opinion. I mean, for 7 mana you can get 2 4/4 legendary creatures that fly, so that's pretty good. I've got a Wolfbriar Elemental, just a way to make a token army. A Deathforge Shaman, so an interesting way to deal some damage. A Colonia Hydra, so this just works amazingly with our commander. We just swing with it, double all the counters, and then play what, an instant speed kicker spell, and just deal everybody a ton of damage. Michaeloth, another token engine. Thicket Elemental, I've played with this card for quite a while now. One of my friends, Kramer, actually showed me it a long time ago. It's always been interesting. I mean, interesting is a way to put it, for sure. I've got a Verdurous Gearhulk. If you haven't watched the Challenger deck series that we just put out a little while ago, we had a little mini tournament, and this card won me the game both times. It was insane. It's really cool, actually. I've got Gruen the Lonely King. This is a card that Eric is really excited about. It's pretty interesting. I mean, it's a big creature that swings for a lot of damage. I do wish the artwork was a little less busy. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to see it in person. I think we both expected something in our heads, and then we finally got to see the artwork, and we were a little bit like, oh gosh, that's too much going on. I've got a Bane of Progress, destroy all the artifacts and enchantments. A Vertaloth the Ancient. I've been playing this card in my Thelion deck for a very long time now. It actually works really well for making tokens, and I don't know. It having kicker really adds to our deck here. I've got a Vigor, so the synergy here is absolutely amazing. I can't wait to play around with this some more. A Woodfall Primus, of course, being able to put a +1/+1 counter back on this guy after he has the persist counter and just keep continuing his effect. It's going to be really cool. Now we're breaking into our artifacts here. We've got a Soul Ring. Lightning Greaves, keep our commander safe. Cloudstone Curio, I think this is actually really important in this deck, to be able to bounce back our kicker creatures back to our hands and then kick them again, especially for Hallar's ability. I've got a Lifecrafter's Bestiary. This is an amazing card from Kaladesh. I highly recommend it to anybody that's building a green deck. You know, it essentially does everything you want it to do. The Scry 1 actually really helps, and then just only paying 1 green to draw a card every time you cast a creature spell is pretty good. Cauldron of Souls, of course, just like we were talking about with the Woodfall Primus, this is absolutely amazing. You know, being able to bring all our guys back, put +1/+1 counters on it, and wait for the next board wipe to do it again. They've got a Hardened Scales, Impact Tremors, Sylvan Library, a little bit of card draw, Doubling Season, of course. I don't know why we wouldn't include this in here. And then we're getting into our instant speed kicker spells. We've got Overload, so a little bit of artifact destruction. It's got a little bit of a restriction on it, so if you don't kick it, it's 2 or less. If you do kick it, it's 5 or less. So still, either way, not that great, but I just like that it's an instant speed kicker spell for 3, but you know, not bad. Then Vines of Vastwood, a great way to protect our commander, also to buff him or just buff an attacker. And the kicker cost is great, so just 2 green, we can activate our commander's ability. Our trigger, I should say. Then we've got a Comet Storm, so X and 2 red, one of Eric's favorite cards. It deals quite a bit of damage and can actually finish off your opponents for sure. They've got a Saldaria of Heroes, so a green and a colorless, green and a colorless. It's got Strive. So essentially you just cast a spell and double the counters on Hallar. It actually works out really well. We're going to got a Strength of Tardura, a Falling Timber, so kicker cost is sacrificing a land, so it's interesting. You prevent all combat damage. Target creature would deal this turn. If you paid the kicker cost, prevent all combat damage, another target creature would deal this turn. It's an interesting spell. I don't know. It's definitely just kind of an include for now. I'm interested to see if the rest of the Dominaria spoilers give us a few more like kicker spells that I could kind of replace some of these ones that aren't so great with. We'll see though. I've got an Inspiring Call, so draw a bunch of cards for all the creatures you have with +1/+1 counters on them. Plus it gives all those creatures indestructible, which is what we're really after here. Then Urza's Rage. Magma Burst, another one that I don't know if we necessarily want to pay the kicker cost on all the time. And then we're moving on to our sorceries here. We've got Breath of Daragaz. So an interesting kind of like pseudo board wipe. It if you kick it, it deals 4 damage to each creature without flying, which isn't bad for 4 mana. And then we've actually got the other side of it too with Canopy Surge, which essentially does the same thing for flying creatures. It also, keep in mind, it does damage to the players as well, so it actually feeds right into Hallar's abilities. So even though these two aren't the best, I think I'll keep them in the deck just because they actually work with our strategy quite a bit. Molten Disaster. Of course, a little bit of Rampant Growth. Cultivate. Primal Growth, which is great. Dwarven Landslide, which is another interesting one. Hunting Grounds, which is kind of like our Explosive Vegetation with a very high kicker cost. Verdant Confluence, a great way to put +1/+1 counters on things and search for lands and, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, so just a great spell. We're breaking into our lands here. We've got a Cinderglade, Copperland Gorge, Forgotten Cave, Game Trail, Ghoul Guildgate, Gruul Turf, Llanowar Reborn, Opal Palace, great synergy with our commander, Oran Reef the Vastwood, another really good card for our commander, Rootbound Crag, Sheltering Thicket, Stomping Ground, Temple of Abandon, Yavimaya Hollow, so just a great way to protect our commander. And I believe the rest is for us. I think we have about, I think it's about a 14-14 split, something like that. It'll be in the deck list in the description, so you can check for sure there. And with that, that is the end of the deck tech. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. We are having a blast with all these Dominaria commanders. I mean, we're running around the clock, essentially, trying to get all these deck techs done. That's why we kind of pushed this one out a little bit early. We don't even have the artwork for Hallar yet. And like I said previously, there could definitely be some cards that get released in the rest of the Dominaria spoilers that could add something to this deck. I mean, Kicker's an interesting effect, essentially. I've not really played a whole lot with it because it's never really been that great. Maybe, besides a few cards here and there. But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens, and I'm interested to see if we're done getting these crazy commanders or not. Either way, we're going to continue making videos, and we will see you guys in the next one.